as kind of an introduction to the session, I get one set of questions a lot, and the questions are really kind of around the same topic. It's like, how do I price my CSA? What's the right sizing? What do I put in it? And so I think the goal of this session is to hear from, farmers firsthand who are, I think, doing this really well. And, when you kind of take that information in, hopefully that can help inform your own strategy. And I definitely want to talk about my own CSA member experience and also the member experience of my mother, who's in a different generation, because I think the two of us represent probably a good majority of kind of CSA member behavior. So also touch upon that and how that kind of feeds into this discussion. So maybe we can just do a quick round of intros, since Carolyn, you're the closest to me on the screen. Yeah, why don't you start just kind of where are you based, a little bit about your farm, maybe a little bit about your CSA program.
Sure. Hello, I'm Carolyn. I'm about in a little less than an hour north of Santa Barbara in Buellton, but our farm stretches 170 acres across Santa Barbara County. It's actually my father-in-law's. He's been farming since the late 70s, and we just grow all organic vegetables. And I've been running our CSA program for about 14 years now. Yeah.
Awesome. Elizabeth, why don't you go next?
I'm Elizabeth Kaiser. Along with my husband, Paul, we started Singing Frogs Farm 18 years ago, and 17 years ago, we started our CSA. So really have designed a lot around that CSA. It's about 50 to 60% of our revenue, which is great, is up this year over prior years, it being sort of 45% of our revenue. Love CSA, love focusing the rest of our harvests around CSA. And we run intensive no-till market gardens. We're doing about 140 boxes right now a week, and we'll do that through November, and then we'll go to every other week over the winter. So we'll do about 40 to 42 boxes a year. We really like the every other week in the winter because people eat year round. We're here in Northern California. I didn't say that. I'm sorry. We're an hour and a half north of San Francisco. And people eat year round, and it's just so much easier to keep engagement with people if you're just continuing giving them produce all year. The first few years when we were just seasonal, at the end of the season and getting into do you remember how great it was? Why don't you come back? Was just so challenging, rather than, and here we are again, and here's your next box. So anyhow, we'll chat more.
Awesome. And Aliza, why don't we go to you?
Hi, my name's Aliza Pickering. I'm actually on the East Coast in upstate New York, near Saratoga area. I've been doing CSAs for the last 12 years, and I grew up on my family's farm, started a CSA there, and then worked for a nonprofit, started a CSA there for them, and now I have my own business, the CSA and Garden Center, and we're starting a farm, but my CSA, we actually buy most of the stuff in for the boxes right now as we get our sandy soil up to speed, and then plan on growing more of our own stuff eventually. Our CSA runs year-round too, and I agree it makes it easier to retain members than trying to get them back. I'm actually feeling that right now with our farm stand. It's seasonal. We start the farm stand Mother's Day weekend, and it's just been slow. It probably won't pick up till we put our sweet corn sign up, which will be late this year with all the rain we've had. So yeah, we have a year-round CSA, and we do some drop-off locations we've been working on starting.
Great. So we have both coasts covered. Yeah, so for a little bit of framing, I think CSA members at this point, for the most part, make up probably 3 generations primarily, spanning, millennial to baby boomers. And as a personal example, I'm a millennial, and my mother's a baby boomer. We're both CSA members. And I think where there's a lot of overlap is on the values front. We both put an emphasis on eating healthy, supporting local, care about the environment. We both like cooking. She's a much better cook, but I'm, by her age, will hopefully be as good, maybe. And I think that part of it is very similar. So where it starts to differ is, schedules and lifestyle. I work, my wife works, we have a 7-month-old. So obviously that kind of dictates a lot of what we do. And my mom's semi-retired. She still has her own landscaping business. And so she still works. Obviously less than she was before. She's kind of brought down her client base, does a lot more traveling. So that's kind of new. So she does a lot more traveling. Though that's kind of, again, quieted down a bit with her first grandchild that she, is excited about. And interestingly, I first came in as a weekly kind of pay as you go customer. And a lot of that had to do with just not really sure what it was. And my mom kind of had shared the same feeling of like, don't really know what CSA is, don't really know like what it stands for. I think it's actually good that you had that opportunity to educate the customer on what it is, because it is more than, a farm box or produce box. But a lot of times when people are first exposed to it, they're not really sure what it is. And so that entry point of like being able to pay in a smaller installment, made it more approachable. And then, in year 2, year 3, as I've continued, I'm more comfortable, paying for half the season or more upfront. But that was more so a result of having a positive experience that made you comfortable. I pick up weekly. I pick up like a garden or like smaller size share. We both have home gardens, so we both grow our own food as well. But I do like the weekly schedule myself because we do consume, enough that we need to pick up weekly. And then on my mom's end, she's every other week, and mostly just because of her schedule, again, like because of the travel. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to frame that because I think it's interesting as you think about like your own member base, you're going to have a lot of the like families busy, working, Monday through Friday. And then you're going to have a lot of the, semi-retired or, second career type people who, are a little bit different, but both of them share that same value base. I'd love to kind of start with you, and I'm going to kind of ask a variation of the same questions to everybody. First, maybe if you could kind of do a little scene setting in terms of like, what are the sizes? You have different payment plans, you have different schedules. And yeah, so give us a little bit of context. And then, the first question is like, how did you determine that? Like, how did you pick those sizes?
Yeah. I actually have like, I'll call it 3.5 sizes because one is just kind of dangling off on the end and I refuse to let it go. Well, in Santa Barbara, Southern California, we're kind of the mecca of food, a farmer's market on every corner. So I had to kind of keep that in mind when I'm offering CSA shares while making it flexible. So I started out with a regular size, which is 10 items, and a large size, which is 15. And then I just realized part of the community wants to participate, but may just not be eating as much vegetables. So we have 3 different sizes. You can sign up weekly. We are year round. And, obviously you get a discount if you're signing up for more shares at one time. But if you only sign up for one, it's worked really well because, there's a little upcharge for it. And so for the amount of work on the back end to get someone really up and going, it feels worth it because they're paying a little bit extra for it.
Yeah, no, I think it does. And on the 3 sizes, how did you, I guess, price it and determine, it's going to be this many items or this price point? Like maybe walk us through how you figured that out.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Well, the box price has obviously gone up over the years, and so has the cost of putting the vegetables into the box. So it's this constant, if like the box that I'm holding in that picture costs $30, you want to make $10 off of it. So the cost of what you're putting into it, basically each item, seeing as we specify 10 items, has got to be about $2 each. One's 3, one's 1. So that's basically it, is really kind of going back and analyzing the cost of, what you're putting into it versus how much you want to make out of it. We have other costs too, right? Farmhand and employees, and we're giving back to schools and different things, advertising and things. But, that's basically what I go off of.
I really like how, you take pictures every week and there's a clear like visual indication of the sizing and what you're getting, which is really nice. So maybe you can share a bit of like when you start taking the pictures and why, and then how do you determine like formulaically, like I'm going to give you like 1 fruit, like 2 root, 1 lettuce, kind of the details there.
Yeah, it feels just like a natural rhythm now. So I'm trying to, go back and trying to think about how I do it. I started taking the pictures because I really feel like people buy with their eyes, and I'm constantly getting asked, what's in the box? What's in the box? So it's really easy to just send people to my Instagram. Literally almost every week without fail, I lay each vegetable out in the different box sizes, on a piece of wood so people can really get an idea about eating seasonally, what's going in the boxes, and really the value of it, because it's, such a good value compared to actually going to the farmer's market and buying it there. So we're trying to really show people that as well. And then as far as putting it in, it's just kind of, like the cost. I know how much stuff costs wholesale. So like a pound of zucchini is a certain dollar amount. A pound of tomatoes is a certain dollar amount. Blueberries or cherry tomatoes or something, the heirloom tomatoes or something that costs more, snap peas, then I have to kind of think about balancing that out with an herb, something that doesn't cost as much. And that's pretty much how I'm doing it.
Great. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, great.
Similar question to you, Elizabeth. Maybe you can start with a little bit of context, both in terms of, have you always had this model of kind of the two sizing with the weekly, bi-weekly splits? Maybe we start there.
Sure. So we have a classic box that we charge $32 a box for, and we have a family box that is $40. The classic box is 6 to 7 items, and the family is 8 to 10 items. Often it's also just bigger items. So like if you harvest your cauliflower, you get a lot like this, and then you get a few like this, and guess what? Those families get that. So it's sort of nice in managing those items like that. I find it interesting, Carolyn, that you talk about a $30 box and you're putting $20 wholesale in it. Because we also do farmers market, we're always thinking retail pricing. So we recently switched over to farmhand, and before that we were looking at getting about a $28 value in the box. Now that we switched over to farmhand, all of our fees are passed off to the member, and so we're really getting that full $30. So we're looking at more like a $29, I guess it was more like $27, and now it's more like a $29 value. So we also do a little bit of that juggling. Is it a higher value item that's going in that's like, wow, that's worth like $7? Now we've got to balance that with some lesser. So we definitely do that. We also very much have a recipe. We want to have a lettuce in every box, a bunching green, a root in most boxes, a heavy. A heavy for us is something so that your members don't pick up their box full of lightweight things and they're like, what the heck am I paying for? There's nothing in here. And so that might be, summer squash, that might be tomatoes, that might be a kohlrabi, but it's something that also in the kitchen isn't just light greens. So we're making sure there's a heavy in there. We do get an herb every week, and we try to get a fruit every other week. We document it out for years, and we're sort of constantly looking forward in weeks. And in that recipe, like what's the lettuce, what's the bunching green, is there a light green or shoots, and going along with that. Did that answer your question, Ari?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, one thing that's interesting that both I think relates to your membership and Carolyn's membership, because your CSA programs have been going on for so long. There's a lot of customers that are on weekly schedule that have been on the weekly schedule for so long, or have been on the classic box for so long. I'm just curious if you're seeing a difference between some of those long-standing members versus new members, or if there's anything, you've seen behavior-wise.
You know what? I would have to say the behavior is honestly, I really liked how you talk about your mom and you. I've definitely got the baby boomer clients, and they are with us. They are values, with us, but sometimes they're like, Elizabeth, I just don't eat that much, and then it's okay. You support us, you can drop down to every other week. We still appreciate you. How about you don't quit the CSA, because they're almost like, I think I need to quit it. I can't eat it all, and walking them through those steps.
The different options. Yeah.
The different options. The newer ones are much more into add-ons, and, I would like to work even more at pushing add-ons. And that's why we haven't gotten into, I heard Carolyn, sounds like you have a pretty big box. I haven't done that. If you want a lot, yes, you could order 2 boxes, but why don't you just put a lot of add-ons on there? So we have found the pricing to be pretty good. When we first started, we had a lot of CSAs up here in Northern California, so we're really matching the price of other CSAs in our area. Then was sort of the CSA bust, and we were only one of 3 in our county, so that wasn't that much of an issue. But we've we've gone with the flow. Like, do we feel like we're hearing a lot of people dropping because it's too much produce? That is the number one reason that people drop. Okay, this year we're not going to raise the price. We're going to decrease what goes in the box a little bit as our price raise. So it's hard. It's really hard to manage what is the right space for people. But I like, you know, a one size box, a bigger size, and then every other week. That really gives people 4 options plus the add-on where they can go up from there.
And specific to like the classic versus family, I think you touched on this, but is it just that people are getting more portion size, or are they getting different items?
I try to do larger portions because like in my own family, so I have 2 teenagers. You know, sometimes if you have a lot of things very small quantities, it's almost harder to prepare. But if I had 2 bunches of chard, like no problem, you know, I can make that disappear. But if I have both chard and kale, so they're behind me right now, so that's why I picked them quickly. That's a little harder to prepare for. But sometimes for our field management, we want to, and I've got garlic sticks, let's throw those in for families or something like that. We want to like diversify. So it's a balance, making your members happy and keeping track of that. So, yeah.
Awesome. What's interesting as a point of contrast is, Aliza, you've been doing CSA for a while, but how long have you been doing this particular program with kind of Daydream Farmer?
Yeah, so this business, the co-op is actually we started it with just greens, and then we transitioned into like a regular co-op. I was waiting to grow stuff, and then I was like, I'm just going to start and buy stuff in, build up my clientele, and then backfeed it with my own stuff when we get there. So maybe a year and a half with this regular CSA?
Yeah, so it's been a year and a half, and I think when we started this year, you had, you know, like a little over 100 members, and then now you've like more than doubled it, and I think I looked at it in the last 90 days, you've added like over 100 members. So you've added a ton of members quickly, and pretty much all the members, unlike, you know, Elizabeth's and Carolyn's, who are more like long-standing, have just joined your program in the last, you know, year and a half, call it. And a couple of things that, you know, observationally that I found was interesting, and maybe you can start and kind of give your opinion on why you formulated it this way and why you've seen the behavior this way, is, you know, almost everybody came in with the weekly pay-as-you-go model. Like that was super popular, right? I think you designed that kind of from the outset. That was an option. And then, you know, there's a lot of biweekly people. And then a lot of small size, and you do multiple sizes too. So yeah, maybe what led you to set it up that way, and what were you kind of seeing in your market?
I think I've realized over the years, people don't eat as much as you think that they do in a week. Since you have offered the survey, the last 3 people that canceled said they just couldn't go through it. And they have small boxes. I didn't check whether they were weekly or every other week. But the biggest thing I hear is, it's just the 2 of us. We don't eat that much. And so that's why our small box is only $26. It's a way for people to participate in this program they want to be a part of, but they're not consuming a whole lot of food in a week. And after seeing those responses from the cancellation survey you did, I might even start like putting less in the small boxes. So I use a calculator in a spreadsheet to calculate how much to put in the box. And because I'm buying in wholesale, I try to get 29 to 32% profit off of the box. And we always have, and this is a selling point, we always have fresh greens even through the winter, even though it's spinach season for a while when we can't have lettuce mix. And then in the spring, there's always a fresh herb. And then, you know, try to have like 2 vegetables that are, like Elizabeth said, that are kind of heavier, like an actual vegetable and not just a green. In the winter, there's always onions in the box. But yeah, the small box is the majority. And I would say almost most members are every other week. And that's another way so we offer the $26 box plus on top of that, you can do every other week. So it's like you can join and it's not an overwhelming box of vegetables you get that you can't use. Yeah.
And it seems like the majority of people are joining in that way, like they're joining pay weekly every other week. And are you seeing people change from that as time goes on, or probably too early to tell at this point?
I think that people will switch. The winter's really hard here. Like we don't have the variety that you guys do out west at all. It's like root crop season for like 7-8 months, like long time. And I think this winter will actually offer a once a month box, because the end of winter people are like, I can't eat another beet or carrot ever again in my life. So we might do like a once a month box pickup, but a lot of people in this time of year will switch to weekly instead of every other week coming out of winter. They eat more, it's more perishable items. But we also at the same time have people that cancel their membership and just buy from our farm stand that's open for the season and then go back to the boxes in the fall. We also have some new drop-offs. We're kind of targeting hospitals because they have a large amount of employees, and the idea is to just go do one drop-off for the employees at the hospital and they can pick up. And we're just kind of getting going with that. And I need to do some more marketing around that. But I just think people like the flexibility. Everybody's lifestyle is so different and how much you have time to, people are so busy working. People don't cook like they used to, I feel like, but they want to, and they want to eat fresh and they want to support local farms.
Yeah. And like you said, you're getting a lot of these kind of like, hospital workers. I don't know what the appropriate term is, but since you are targeting those sites. And so that is probably a lot of like working age, folks. So yeah, as you talk to them, like any insights, like is this the first time they're joining a CSA program, or is this like the first time they're buying from farms? Have they been going to markets?
Unfortunately, I don't, because we do these drop-offs, I'm never there to like really talk to them.
That.
Yeah, I think they're very busy people. And I would bet the age group I don't actually know. I should somehow do a survey or something to find out. I'd be curious. A lot of the people who pick up at our main spot is at our garden center / farm stand. And there's also just not a lot of young people in this area. I would say like a lot of CSA members are baby boomers, like your mom, the older generation. But then there are young families too. But the majority are probably older.
Got it. Yeah. So, before I turn it over to questions, and, you feel free in the audience, if you want to like address your question to anybody, just write their name. But otherwise, whoever can answer it. If you do have any like specific questions and you want to go through it with me, I'd love to chat. This is kind of what I look at all day and love to do. And so I love hearing, everyone's different contexts and learning about their market. And I have a pretty unique vantage point, having been able to just observe lots of different CSA programs do things differently, and then, find different common threads where it's like, okay, this seems to be a trend. Like lots of people are doing this really well the same way, or so-and-so is doing this really well. So it might be related. So yeah, let's see. I'll pause there. And if you guys have questions for each other too, like go for it. I'm sure you guys also like learn some new things from each other.
I was going to say too, as far as like what's going in the box, I think Elizabeth reminded me, we also have staples. As long as it works out, most of the year we have a carrot, a lettuce, a fruit, and maybe like an onion is kind of like a staple. This year I'm lucky enough to make avocados a staple. So it's just kind of something you can expect to see every week and plan on. People can rely on it, and you kind of have a base of a price point too to start with.
I personally love staples.
Yeah.
I'm
a creature.
I know. I like going to my go-to recipes. So if you give me a salad mixing carrots and beets every week, I'll never complain.
Do you actually mean you would give carrots and avocado every week?
Every week.
Wow. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, avocados are seasonal, right? So it's maybe like 5 months out of the year. And actually this year's the first year I've done avocados every week. And it's just, I started, I take home a box for myself every week. And it was so nice to have an almost ripe avocado every week.
Talk about member retention.
Yeah. Thank you.
Not sure many people can do that. That's pretty unique.
It is. We're really lucky down here.
I'm trying to get my first avocado from a tree I planted 2.5 years ago. So.
Any luck with that?
Not yet. If you have any tips. I think I'm just in the wrong climate. So.
Yeah, you really need that Galita climate that, doesn't freeze, just kind of temperate, that little, Mediterranean climate.
I'm still optimistic. It looks healthy, the tree. It's just not fruiting.
Yeah, give it time. It took me 8 years to grow a pixies here in Buellton in a colder climate. So not saying that about your avocado, but I believe.
Let's see. Any questions? Oh, looks like Sarah has a question.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for sharing all of this really helpful information. I logged on a little bit late, and so you might have said this and I missed it, but I am currently navigating a change in software with our CSA subscription service, and I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about the software that you use, and by a little bit, I mean every single detail I will eat up. So
Hey, we could be here for 6 hours.
I know. Yeah, just any software insights would be incredibly helpful.
Software
Anybody?
Farmigo? I mean, Farmigo. Sorry. It's a long life with Farmigo. Are you talking about software beyond what we're currently using with Farmhand?
Yeah, just like what inspired you to switch to Farmhand, if you did switch, what your experience with software has been in the past. We were using Farmigo last season and switched to Local Food Marketplace, and the transition has been pretty rough for my not technologically inclined self, as well as our customer base. It's just not very user-friendly. I'm mostly just trying to cherry pick information that people are willing to share about what your experience has been.
Yeah, well, I was with Farmigo for 12 or 13 years, kind of just complacent, kind of just getting the job done barely. And Ari found me maybe about a year ago, and it's kind of completely changed how I do business. You know, I'm not sitting behind the scenes trying to deal with the tech, trying to deal with the people putting boxes on hold or having, you know, the little questions. Of course, I'm always there for anything having to do with the farm or customer service. But it's really given me the opportunity to spend my time connecting with the community more and trying to find more outlets for the CSA and give more farm tours and be with my chickens and all the things.
I was with CSAware for about 5 years. Prior to that, I did everything on spreadsheets, and I was pretty reticent. I didn't want to leave my spreadsheets. I left spreadsheets during COVID when I was growing the CSA because everybody wanted to all of a sudden join a CSA, and one of my managers refused to work in person, and so they helped set me up on CSAware, which they could do remotely. Most farming cannot be done remotely, and it was good. You know, I had a good relationship with them, but there wasn't much back and forth. You sort of had to figure everything out yourself, and it worked out okay. Ari is local here with me, so we run into each other a lot, and he asked me to join about a year and a half ago, and I was like, I'm pretty happy, and like, that sounds great, and good luck. And I was hitting some walls with CSAware where I just wasn't really getting the communication from people. I even was their pilot for getting online EBT. So I actually really had an in to all the software designers and things like that. So I was able to make it manage okay because I knew all of the people there. Transitioning over was a challenge. It's a lot to get all your people to get a full new system. So do not take that lightly. Like, you do need to choose the right software. And I like Farmhands, and I'm going to give it a shout out and say do them, but make sure you time it at the right time because it was a lot of work doing the transition, and Ari and his team did a lot of the work, you know, took things out of CSAware and did that transfer. And still, I mean, I think we're still trying to catch up with some members who still haven't gotten their billing information in there, although hopefully we're almost done with that. And we started April 9th, I think it was, or something, and here we are on June 27th. I am seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and I am enjoying having more time. I'm writing my emails much more quickly. I'm, you know, being pushed to try some new things. We definitely have expanded our membership, and it's a lot easier for us. For some of the baby boomer older customers, learning a new software was challenging for them, but it's actually overall much easier. And overall, I've gotten my members saying, like, I really appreciate it. I can send a text. I can, like, it's just so much easier. So I hope is that helpful, Sarah?
Yes, mostly I heard you say light at the end of the tunnel.
I've only used the CSA software once before. I think it was Farmigo, but that was a long time ago, and I've done it on spreadsheets since then. And once we hit over 100 members with this business, the Daydream Farmer, I just couldn't manage anymore in my spreadsheet. I kept making a ton of mistakes, but I was using Square's subscription and like tweaked it to kind of work the way I needed it to. And then we switched over to Farmhand, which was, they do a lot of most of the work communication-wise. It was a pretty easy transition, probably because we were kind of small. And I think the hardest part was just, you know, we changed the payment date to a week ahead of time. I love being able to forward emails from members that I get to hello@gofarmhand.com, and just they respond. And right now I just don't have the time, and I will not respond to emails for weeks, and it's so bad. And it's really, really nice that they deal with like all of the customer service aspect of it. And you can text them and chat them, which I do all the time, and probably really annoying, but it's so nice to just, it's like a CSA assistant. I was thinking about hiring somebody to like manage my spreadsheets and just manage the CSA end of it, communication. And once I ran the numbers, it just farmhand made a lot more sense, and the transition was great. And they took over the website and the signups, and any changes that I want to make, they're just really easy to communicate with. So yeah, Sarah, I recommend Farmhand's great. And I did a lot of research before I switched to all the other ones, and just what they offered. Farmhand offers more than the other softwares that I was looking at, and they have the email platform, which is one of the biggest reasons I went. It was taking me hours to do my weekly newsletter, and now it takes like 10 minutes.
Let's see. Any other questions? All right. Well, yeah, appreciate everybody's time, and thanks so much for all the amazing information. I definitely think there's something to like really understanding your customers and their preferences and kind of adapting as time goes on. So I don't think there's any replacement for meeting your members, kind of getting that feedback, and then continuing to improve and revise your offerings. And, for better or for worse, I think the main themes are there are a lot of people who are moving towards the smaller sizes. I mean, I see that across the entire customer base, where what used to be the small share is now turning into like the main share. That's definitely a theme. Just making it easy. Weekly payment plans, or, pay every 4 weeks. That's a huge advantage. Same with the biweekly option. And then the formulating the box, I think that's always so interesting because, like you said, like how does it feel? Is it heavy? Am I getting good value? I mean, for me personally, like I don't even do the math as a member anymore. Like I just see what I'm getting and I'm like, this is awesome. I'm getting such a good deal. Like it always feels like a good deal. But I imagine when you're first starting out, you're still doing the math on like, does it make sense? And the food waste piece is a really interesting one. And I definitely want to like do further research on the food waste component in particular, because I really do wonder how much of that can be overcome with just better education around, how to use what you're receiving. So obviously there's like recipes and food storage tips. I know for us, like a big thing of getting the most out of our CSA, you get your box, you come home, and then you like clean everything, you get the greens into like the little storage bags around like the cloth paper. And I mean, that kind of stuff makes a huge difference, because then it's like, for one, like your stuff lasts seemingly forever. And then two, you start, thinking about what you're going to do with everything for that week. It's kind of like the start point for thinking of, meal planning. Like we don't try to like buy the groceries until we get our CSA, and then that kind of informs what we're going to do for the week. So yeah, like I really wonder how much more opportunity there is on the customer education side, so that when people are receiving their boxes, there's just a higher chance of success. Obviously, that's tricky because some people may be well-intended, but fall into their bad habits of whatever microwave meals or food delivery. But they join, so there's definitely a way.
I think there should be a book on like how to be a successful CSA member. I don't like a very simple book with lots of pictures, like storage tips, vegetable. I don't know. And then the people can buy it. You can, make a little money on the side, but there's like a guide. I tried, what is her name? My Digital Farmer. She has Carolyn. Like an online thing. Carolyn. Yeah, but it was I don't know. It was like a visual person. I couldn't absorb the information that way, but.
Yeah, we still do paper newsletters in our CSA, and I was just at Staples buying more ink, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm spending so much on ink, and yet I think it's worth so much for somebody to get like recipes in their hand and notes in their hand. Texts are great and all, but you can't send that much information. And yeah, amazing what you do, Ari. Could you please tell all our CSA members to like have a CSA day ritual like that?
Yeah, it would be.
I was just going to say too, something that I found has been working really well, and it's difficult because I'm not a big social media girl, but making reels and showing people a recipe or showing people the background of the farm or where the food is coming from, like a little movie, is huge. It gains so much traction, and that is extremely hard, but that is kind of the route I'm starting to look down, because that's what seems to be making the most difference.
No, I started last year on my Wednesday, my CSA day. Twice I just randomly happened to send like 10 pictures because I had some great pictures. And one of my CSA members, who's a marketer for a pretty big winery up here, said, Elizabeth, this is what I signed up for. Like, she just put it in these perfect words for me. She's like, I don't have time to come visit you on one of your farm tours, but you sending me these pictures from this week, like, tells me why I'm paying money for this CSA box. Like, do this again. And I was like, wow, Lisa, thanks. I needed to hear that. And so now every CSA, I send out an email, and because your newsletter format, Ari, isn't holding them the right way, you guys are amazing and do like a little MailChimp for us. And it just like, I'm like, photo drop of the week. Number 1 has, a picture of all the lettuce that the skunk dug up. Picture number 2 is, our farm truck and Bobby driving it. And number 3 is these people hoeing in the field. And they just love those little pictures. So I'm not even doing social media. And they now know that they can expect that email, and they open up the email to see the photos, and then they also get the information. I don't know. Maybe it works.
No, I think there's different ways to do it, digitally, physically. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody.